So here's the twist. Samsung's next big flagship, the Galaxy S26 Ultra, might actually look worse when you take a selfie. Not because of bad processing or a weak sensor, but because of something as simple as the lens being just a little too wide. Before we jump in, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. It really helps me keep bringing you more tech breakdowns like this one. Yeah, Samsung's reportedly making the selfie camera punch hole bigger this year, which sounds like a step backward for a premium phone. But there's a reason for it. They're apparently cooking up a new lens with a wider 85-degree field of view, compared to 80 degrees on the Galaxy S25 Ultra. That might not sound like much on paper, but in photography terms, it's the difference between a 22mm lens and a 20mm one. And that's actually a noticeable shift. Basically, this means you'll be able to fit more into the frame. More friends, more background, more of that perfect travel backdrop without stretching your arm out like Mr. Fantastic. But here's where it gets tricky. Wider isn't always better, especially for faces. Because when you go wide, you also start distorting perspective. The moment you bring that lens close to your face, like every selfie ever, your nose, forehead, and cheeks start to stretch out. You might not even notice it right away, but something will just feel off. That's because once you dip below around 24mm in focal length, proportions start warping. It's why in portrait photography, the sweet spot for flattering faces is usually somewhere between 35mm and 85mm. Anything wider, and suddenly you're seeing the world through a funhouse mirror. So while Samsung's wider lens will let you capture more of your surroundings, it could also make your face look a little exaggerated around the edges, especially if you're standing off-center in a group shot. Basically, your friend on the far left might not love how they look in your new ultra-wide selfie. And here's where the disappointment continues. The sensor itself isn't changing. We're still looking at the same 12-megapixel front camera Samsung's been using. Now, that sensor is solid. It captures sharp details, has great color accuracy, and handles tricky lighting really well. But after 3 generations, people were hoping for a more meaningful upgrade, something that says, yeah, this is the Ultra. Imagine if Samsung had introduced a 50-megapixel selfie sensor, even if it outputted 12-megapixel shots through pixel binning. It would have been a clear statement, a way to pull ahead of Apple and Google in the selfie game. Instead, we're getting a slightly wider lens and a bigger punch hole. It's not exactly the wow moment fans were waiting for. Meanwhile, Apple's already moved forward. The iPhone 17 lineup has an entirely new selfie camera system with a clever square sensor. That design lets you take landscape selfies even when you're holding your phone vertically. It's simple, smart, and genuinely useful. The kind of small but meaningful innovation people expect from premium phones. Samsung, on the other hand, seems to be playing it safe. Maybe too safe, because it's not just the front camera that's underwhelming, even the rear setup has some trade-offs. Earlier rumors suggested that the Galaxy S26 Ultra's 3x telephoto lens would finally get an upgrade, jumping from 10 megapixels to 12 megapixels. But new reports say that's not happening. In fact, the sensor might actually get smaller, shrinking from 1/3.52" to 1/3.94". So not only are we not getting a higher resolution zoom lens, it might technically perform worse in low light. That's definitely not what you'd expect from something carrying the Ultra name. Now, to be fair, the Galaxy S25 Ultra's selfie camera was already one of the best in the business. It was clean, consistent, and reliable. 3 things you can't say about every phone camera. And Samsung's processing has been dialed in for years now, so even if the sensor isn't changing, there's a good chance the overall selfie experience will still be excellent. But this time, Samsung's idea of an upgrade feels more like a sidestep, one that could easily backfire depending on how people react to that wider look. Sure, you'll fit more friends into the shot, but will you actually like how you all look in it? That's the real question. If anything, this move highlights the fine line phone makers are walking right now. We've reached a point where every hardware change has trade-offs. You make the lens wider, you get more in frame, but risk distortion. You shrink the punch hole, you lose light intake. You boost megapixels, you add noise or complexity. There's no perfect formula anymore. What Samsung might be aiming for here is versatility. A camera that's better for group selfies, travel shots, and those quick show your surroundings moments. It's a practical change. But if you care most about flattering, close-up portraits, the S26 Ultra's wider selfie lens might not be your friend. At the end of the day, it's not a disastrous move, just one that feels surprisingly cautious for a phone that's supposed to represent Samsung's cutting edge. A slightly wider lens, the same sensor, and a smaller telephoto, that's not the kind of ultra leap fans are used to seeing. So while the Galaxy S26 Ultra might take broader selfies, it might also stretch more than your arm. It could stretch expectations of what counts as an upgrade. What's your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments section. See you in the next video. Take care.